right, so then the rabbi says to the Baptist minister, "No, that's not a bear. That's my luggage." Anyway, and we're back. Welcome once again to the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast.
Happy Shabbat to you, too.
So I figured we'd get our Jewish reference in early so we could just have it out of the way. I might even auto-pan that gag, so it's... boom, now it's just...
Yeah,
all the
that's
silliness.
right, double royalties on that.
All the silliness out of the way. We can just... It's straight audio nonsense for the rest of the night. So,
And Rachel McAdams, because she's on the TV right now.
yeah, the Magic Box is still on. I compromised with Anthony. The TV's on, but the sound's off. And honestly, I think...
Wedding Crashers might be more distracting with the sound off.
It's more interesting.
Do you want to... Maybe we should put The Hangover on.
I haven't seen the second one yet. So.
Well, it's like the first one, only it's in another place.
All right.
It's almost exactly the same.
Apologize in advance for sounding like I'm feeling my oats. I ate 6 rum balls before we started, which is a cookie that doesn't actually have any booze in it, but the name implies it, so I'm trashed.
Oh no, there's actually a pretty healthy amount of booze in those.
Oh dang! Well, some of it's got to cook off though. I mean,
you don't cook them.
I still know my name, so it can't be that much. I thought it was
just
the fact
a minute and a half ago.
I thought it was just the fact that there was rum in the name that was making my lips numb.
They don't get cooked. It's just crushed Nilla wafers and some flour and some glaze on the outside, and then you just rub them in rum.
Well, that works. I'm half lacquered.
One of my other aunts makes bourbon balls. I'll have to start doing that next year because those might be the ticket.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, we were sitting down here a minute ago, and Anthony looked over at my little Focusrite interface and said,
"So how are you liking that? Is that working out for you okay? Mine seems pretty good. How are you appreciating your Focusrite?"
I said, "It's great. Rupert Neve made it."
And I said, "Oh, damn."
So that's something neither one of us had realized, that there was some Neve design in these little red boxes, and that explains
why they sound so good when they get red.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
It's almost dirty. Like, I don't like running it in the green anymore. I like having the green on all the time. And when it hits red, you're like, oh yeah, that's money. Keep going on that.
So yeah, we've been doing the show here mostly on the Focusrite 2i2 here last few episodes. When we have more than one guest, I've been talking on the ART.
Or I think last week we did the Motu, right? With
last week
all
was
4.
Yep, everybody was on the Motu because that was just the easiest way to get all the inputs in. But yeah, I've been loving this little thing. I did. If you listen to the mini podcasts, the choir one, that was all 12 voices on the Focusrite.
It's so, honestly, like the last week or so. I know we were going to say we were going to get into it later, but that Elvis track that we're working on that I've been whining about.
Yeah, let's bring
incessantly for the last couple of weeks.
The one that they gave you 2 weeks ago and was supposed to be done
2 weeks ago. a week and 3/4 ago. Yeah. So it's pretty much done. I've got the last guy. I'm actually flying in from Washington to record organ on. Not really. He's in Washington right now. He lives here, but yeah, he's flying in because we have an actual Hammond C3 that he wants to check out and see if it's worth fixing up and bringing in. Which it probably is, because as long as it doesn't cost more than like $3 or $4 grand, it's worth bringing in. But this song, I recorded the vocals on it through an Avalon 737, which later on this week you guys will hear a podcast or a mini podcast that I did that John wrote, and I did the audio samples through that. That sounds pretty good, but the vocals I'm just not digging through the Avalon. I actually I kind of wish I would have split it out and did it through the Focusrite too, because I feel like the Focusrite sounds warmer than the Avalon. I hate with a dagger in my hand the compressor in that Avalon. It's not good.
That's the Kick Drum Tricks podcast. If you're listening later and looking for that one,
and everything, like I mentioned, I think a few times in there that everything's flat, everything's out. All I use it for is a pre. Because honestly, it was already plugged in, and I didn't want to repatch stuff, so I just went through it and turned it on. But I don't know if Brian Moore listens at all. Let me know what your feelings are, Brian, on the compression section of the Avalon. Let me know if you hate it as much as I do. Everybody else that I've talked to just can't stand it. It's almost soggy. It's a little bit slow.
Man, 6 months ago, you were ready to take that sucker.
I know, and
ready to walk down the aisle with that thing.
I know. I think the thing with it is, It's really good for like a more gospel type vocal, like a deeper, fatter male vocal or a female vocal. It'll warm up real nice. But for regular, like the song, the Elvis song, it's not doing it for me. I can't make that vocal sit in the mix the way I want it to.
The thing about an Elvis vocal, and my suggestion to Anth was to get it to sit right is now you obviously want to update it. You don't want it to sound exactly like Elvis crooning into a 55.
Right, and the rest of the track is fairly, like, I tried to do the drums kind of vintage style, so it's a D112, an I5, and 2 large diaphragm condensers for overheads, and that's it. I actually didn't even put a room on them. They're just dry. They don't sound bad. And the bass is direct in, so it sounds okay. I did a real laid-back kind of almost finger-style sounding fat, no high-end, no attack on the bass. The strings are fat, but it's a little bit updated from, like 2 mics in a room type thing.
Yep. But anyway, my suggestion on the vocal was to split it out, double it up, and then low pass it, the second channel at, I don't know, dial it around till you get it sounding right. But actually split it, take the bottom half of it, and run it through a tape plug-in.
Yeah.
Because what tapes do is they add a certain amount of distortion. Nice distortion, though, because it tends to be in the lower register, and you get some nice third harmonic coming through.
Right.
So that might be
tape distortion, which is not really, unless you really hit it hard, like not, cassette.
It's not distortion. It's really not even. Well, it's technically saturation, I guess, right. But like it's saturation.
Like harmonic enhancement.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a much more subtle thing than like an overdrive or some sort of guitar effect kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. The other thing was to do with then was
something interesting just happened on the TV.
Yeah, the Magic Box is on. When it was basketball the other week, I could ignore it completely. It was.
Do you want me to put on hockey? Because that's back on, and neither one of us really gives two of anything about that.
Yeah, is this on, or is this on Netflix?
No, this is on. Here, you keep talking. I'll find something.
You surface around. I'm going to watch this later after you go to bed. The other thing I was thinking about Elvis is he's known for having a deep voice, but on the original recordings, you didn't really hear it. It wasn't going to vinyl. There wasn't Big Bottom on vinyl when he was recording.
It was
the low mids.
It's almost like an 80s kick drum. There's not a super, like a pop 80s kick drum.
Okay.
There's not like a super below like 160. Here we go. Yankees classics from 1976.
Oh, baseball? Even better.
Yeah. Well, I'll pay attention, but
but there's only something to pay attention to every 3.5 minutes. So.
But like I don't know, 80s pop kick drums where there's not a whole lot of information. There's nothing really grabbing you below like 140 or 120. There's no super thud in your chest. It's more.
It's almost power. It's like when Mick Hughes was talking about how snare drums used to be in old horn loaded systems, where the kick and nowadays makes your trousers move, and the snare used to be the kick and the snare would both get you in the chest, because the systems back in the day wouldn't really do that earth-shattering low end like we have nowadays, and like the kids all have in their cars, these hip hoppers and
Beats by Dre.
Yeah, your Beats
that's
headphones.
the worst thing Jimmy Iovine's ever done, and I'm sure if he ever heard this, he would come and assassinate me.
Whatever.
But
hyped headphones have their place.
Yeah. Actually,
but yeah, the Elvis thing is really it's in the chest. That's the sound that you're looking for.
And I've refocused. We did one of my friends, Justin, did strings on it for me. He uses East West Quantum Leap Symphonic Orchestra is what he used on it. And it's a real nice arrangement. He did 4 parts, so first and second violin, viola, and cello. And what I did was I knocked a whole lot of like sub bass off the cello, so there's really nothing below 80 on there, but that sits real nice in your chest, like right around there. And everything else, I knocked a little bit of high end off, because there wasn't a whole ton of high end, there wasn't a whole ton of low end. It was more focused. I want to say between like 100 and like 5 or 6K is where most of that music was. And it turned out pretty nice. It's just I'm still having trouble with that vocal. I sent the vocal to a squash channel, ran it through in Pro Tools, the bomb filter.
That's kind of the opposite, though, of what you would get on an Elvis track. I think you need to put like an old school limiter on it, and that's it. Like
Really?
slow.
like, he's wildly inconsistent. Like, there's not more than 3 words at a time that I didn't have to automate.
Right, but once you get it all fairly automated, I'd try an old school limit or something with a slower reaction time.
Even with, like, I'm thinking, because the nicest one that's in there is that 1176 plugin, that at least that I've got. Like, I don't
Even
have...
that might be kind of fast.
You can crank it all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
And like, there's a all buttons in function. So that kind of, like, it's a neat sound to it, and usually what I end up doing is taking that sound and rounding that to all my effects, my reverbs, my delays, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I bet Elvis... Have you looked up any classic Elvis sessions? I'm sure that's documented somewhere. Like the Sun.
It probably has to be. I wanted to kind of figure it out for myself and not cheat, but kind of try and figure out how to do it myself, so I knew how to do it in the future, because that's not...
Have you listened to any Elvis tracks?
Yeah, the one that I'm covering.
No, have you listened to an original Elvis track? Because that's the thing. Like, you to old stuff, when you listen to it in your head, you apply modern stuff to
right,
it. Like, you go back and listen to it. Yeah, you go back and when you actually listen to your favorite old songs, you're like, oh, that's not how I was feeling it in my head. Because
it's so rough, because you listen to it on different systems too. If you're not, the first time you hear something, it's not on a system you're familiar with. Like, there are some killer Roots albums, and minus the Bear stuff, and even Motley Crue stuff, that there's certain stuff that, especially if you're listening to it on iPod earbuds, like the ones that come stock with it, the new remastered, like, Motley Crue stuff sounds killer in it. But you plug it in through anything else, it sounds like garbage.
Well,
because there's that limited bandwidth that you're or not bandwidth, band pass. I don't know. It's been a long day. My brain's more fried than usual, and I haven't been drinking, so this is a legitimate brain fry. I'm just out of stuff.
Yeah, Anth sent me a text earlier. What are we going to talk about so I can be halfway coherent on this? Because I'm probably going to fall asleep as soon as we stop. Mm-hmm. So I thought real quick, and I sent him a text, and then we sat down, and I was like, all right, what are we going to talk about? And we both had to pull out our phones.
Yeah. The physical exhaustion from our jobs isn't as bad as the mental exhaustion. Like, I had an issue earlier, yesterday, actually. We had a wedding at the church today, and yesterday, the guy that was playing piano and singing for the wedding said, "Hey, man, can I get a monitor for this?" And I just stopped for a second. I was like, Within 5 seconds, someone else yelled, "Yo, get him a monitor." And it wasn't that I didn't want to get him a monitor, or that I couldn't get a monitor. I was trying to figure out whether it would be more feasible for me to get a powered wedge and run it through an Aviom, or give him a power or a unpowered wedge and mix it from front of house. That's all. Less than 5 seconds. I feel like that's a big thing for people to grasp, is if we don't answer a question on the drop of a hat, like if it takes us even less than 10 seconds, it's not because we're being negligent or anything like that. We're trying to figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Not just being a dick.
I always tell people that, like, people will ask me for something and I'll pause and I'm like, oh no, if it's too much trouble. Like, no.
I'm
just trying to figure out how to say yes to that.
Right. Yeah. Just give me, it's not even that I'm going to say no. It's let me figure out the best option for you. Mm-hmm. There are several options. Just there are a few that I want to figure out what the best one to give you is. That's all.
I've actually I feel alive and awake for the first time in months tonight. I did a lot of sleeping my last couple of days off. Like, I slept 14 hours.
Oh,
I got up and I had breakfast while the kids were having lunch, and then I took a nap.
We did that on Monday. Sunday was a super long day. I don't think we got home until 10 o'clock at night. We were up for a couple more hours and went to sleep. And I woke up for the first time at 9:30 in the morning. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Well, Amanda's still cold. I'll go back to sleep. And woke up at 11, and she didn't come downstairs until 12.
That was one of those days. I went to bed at midnight, got up at 11, ate a bowl of cereal, took a nap till 3.
Well, that was the thing. Yeah. Like, she came down at 12. I was like, are you hungry? She's like, yeah, make me a breakfast sandwich. We had a breakfast sandwich, watched 2 episodes of X-Files, and by 3 o'clock, we were upstairs napping again.
Beautiful.
And, like, actually napping, not, like, proverbial married napping. Like, we were actually sleeping.
We were honestly asleep. Nice. All right. Well, anyway, let's get down. I'm going to open up this text message here. Sip that coffee and then stall them for time while I remember what it was we were going to talk
talking about inserting analog gear into a digital audio workstation.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll bring this up. I've been reading about this on the boards a little bit. A couple interesting scenarios came up. The first one is like just straight up how to do it. Like guys don't know how to do it. There's a whole generation of people who work just in the box. Because let's face it,
That's where it is now,
and it's economical.
Yeah, it's like as much as at least me and John would probably be very happy if someone dumped a 40-channel API in front of us. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna pause so John can change himself.
Easy. Family show.
But that like there are certain guys that really dig the old school sound. Like I'm one of those guys. It sounds more like a complete mix to me on one desk than it does. No matter how many plugins you put on it and stuff, there's something that you just can't get in the box unless you reroute it and all that stuff. But there's some people that really love that clean digital separated sound, and it's not a problem with it. It's just something different that I'm not totally into. John's not totally into, but that's
it's not that I'm not into it. I just don't have any analog gear that's worth
right.
coming out of the box for.
Yeah, it's easier to just do it in the box.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I don't have a wide range of plugins either, but the ones that I have, I can make them do pretty much everything I want to. Like, I don't have a tape plugin, but if I want to go there, I know what kind of distortion to ask my plugins to make, and if I want an old school limiter, I know what kind of response times I'm looking for out of my one compression plugin that I go for. Mm-hmm. But anyway, if you're gonna do it, the reason this came up was not because a guy had some classy GML or Pultec or whatever.
A Yuri 1176 blue stripe. I'm working on that. I should get that.
Guy just wanted to add some wah to a bass track after the fact. So, somebody was telling him, it won't work. And actually, I think he had already done it, but, you're in the wrong impedance, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I was just going to come out of the outs on my Focusrite, through the pedal, back into my Focusrite. And honestly, like a few years ago, that would have been tougher because latency, like now, I don't know, just like do you even have to worry about it on any DAW? Or do they pretty much all sort it out?
I think it's not. Certain times, yeah. Like I haven't had to worry about it since I got the Mac. When I had that sweet, awesome. What was it? It was some kind of rack mount recording in air quotes PC that they bought from SonicX.com, which is no longer available to purchase things from. And I think it maxed out, like you couldn't put anything more than 3 gigs of RAM in it, and the processor was super, super slow. That I dealt with some serious latency issues with until the guy that bought it came in and told me that. He's like, oh yeah, it was just the hard drive wasn't big, so I just preset everything to route to the external hard drive, which was running on. It wasn't even a USB 2. I think it was USB 1 still.
Ish.
So it was like, it wasn't something that I considered. Like, I thought I was routing it to the internal hard drive when really he had somehow gone in there and rerouted everything to an external.
But anyway, the point is that if you're using a modern DAW, circa 2013.
And you know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, USB sources, FireWire sources, they all report latency to the DAW. The DAW makes adjustments. Like if you're blazing 14 doubled math metal guitar tracks, they all come down the same.
Right. And then
so that's the real thing. It's just getting out of the box and getting back into it and having the DAW line up your tracks again so they come back in. There may be some issues with monitoring. Read the manual. It's not hard to figure out.
There's preset stuff like in Pro Tools and in Logic that I've used. You just go down in a menu that says low latency monitoring or something like that, and it cuts out all the plugins that really chew up your CPU.
There's that. Well, I mean, like this Focusrite literally has a switch on it. So like the headphone jack on it will either listen to what your DAW is sending back through it, or it will play you what's coming out of the pre's directly, like not going through the computer. Mm-hmm. The Art USB dual pre, same thing. It's a knob on the back. You can actually blend back and forth. But if you need to sort out the latency, chances are your DAW and your interface are already making nice about it to begin with. And there are a couple of tricks that you can use to get that down, and even change block size and
buffer size and all that stuff.
And you can actually do a feed through test where you record an impulse and see how far it's offset and make some adjustments yourself. But anyway, look up a tutorial on that. I'm too tired. I'm not that alive and awake that I'm going to explain that to you right now.
He's just good enough to drive.
Maybe. If I don't have any more rum cookies. But the question that was brought up was impedance, and actually, I put this down as two separate topics, but it's really just the one. I don't know. I feel like to put a wah on a bass, you're messing with it a lot already, and it's not like you're creating. It's not like he's just setting out to recreate Eric Clapton's guitar tone. There's no reference. Like nobody's gonna go, oh no, yeah, that doesn't sound like Layla. It's like no, like
Layla,
who's gonna sit there and tell you that?
No, Bootsy.
The
Bootsy friggin' Collins.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like the reason that he was thinking maybe he needed to, use a DI, and I explained to him how a regular DI wasn't gonna do that for him. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a class on impedance matching, but my point was, and there was another guy in the thread who was actually just using his guitar pedals just for crazy stuff, like putting a big muff pie on a kick drum, and I don't know what specifically, but was just using them for things that they wouldn't normally be used for. So in that case, like, okay, so what if the impedance is a little bit messed up? You don't exactly have a reference point, like.
Yeah.
It's not widely known. It's not like a cultural thing. Like, everybody knows what the guitar is supposed to sound like on Layla. Nobody knows what a kick drum's supposed to sound like through a big muff pie and on a Phase 90.
It sounds kind of like the pastor at my church when he's doing a wedding will tell the people that are getting married for the rehearsal, nobody in the audience is going to know if you mess up. It's not their day. They weren't here for rehearsal. If anything gets messed up, it's my fault. Don't worry about it. And that's the same thing. Like, the only person that's going to know is the person that actually did it.
Exactly. And if that person is happy with the outcome, it doesn't really matter whether the impedance was perfectly matched or not. Mm-hmm. So, especially if you're swinging out in there into unknown territory and doing crazy creative things, don't worry about it. Just whatever.
The first stack of Nine Inch Nails records, he was like, he knew what he was doing, but if you try to recreate that, good luck.
Yeah.
Without having his exact plugins and stuff. Trent Reznor was kind of swinging for the fences. He definitely
just plugging stuff in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It turned out great, and everybody loves it now. There's not, anybody that listens and likes Nine Inch Nails doesn't not like Terrible Lie, or, I don't know. Some people don't like The Fragile. I like it a lot, but.
Well, anyway, the other thing I was going to say is if you are trying to come up with a real specific guitar tone, like a couple examples would be, if you recorded, through an amp in the studio, but also took a clean split to reamp later, if you're going to reamp later, if you're trying to match that same tone, you're going to wind up having a hard time doing it because of the difference in impedance. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much the fact that the signal is being changed because of whatever transformer it's going through or not going through. The deal is that instrument pickups are in sort of a no man's land in between sort of the established low impedance range of microphones, which there's actually more wiggle room than you might think in there. Used to be 600 ohms, now anything from 150 up to about 1,000 or 1,500.
I've seen even down to like 120.
Yeah, so there's a range there, and then high impedance, which is sort of roughly established around the 10 kilo ohm, around the 10K mark. Instruments tend to be in between there, and can you plug it into a line input? Can you feed an amp from a line output? Yeah, it'll pass audio. In most cases, it's totally fine. Like, it's one of those rules, like, sure. I say that all the time. Like, hey, Mr. Soundman, can I do this? I do sound at my church. If I plug this into that, and like, well, yeah, it'll pass audio, but it's not really the right way to do it. With guitars, unless you're just doing whatever and you're happy with the sound, like, whatever. Then if it passes audio and you're happy with the sound, but
sometimes that might be something that you like doing. Like, there are a few preamps that I've used. I think the ART ones for sure actually have an impedance knob where you can sweep it.
Yep. Some of the Behringer pre's had selectors too for.
It's a nice thing. Like, if maybe you don't want as high an ohmage going into, maybe you want it just a little bit softer and not as clean.
Yep. And what you'll get is if the impedance isn't matched up right, what you'll get is some loss of the highs.
Yeah.
That's
not a bad thing. Like,
yeah, you might want it.
When Kindo was recording piano at the church, like, he rolled the impedance down pretty low because we had for the two, we did an MS on top with the KSM 44s, and the impedance was cranked up pretty high, and then he ran Gordon's actually TLM 103 underneath for just the bass register and rolled the impedance down pretty low.
And he wasn't looking for a numerical match. He was looking for the sound that he likes through a different transformer.
And it was through his headphones too, so I hope it turns out okay.
Well, that's what we're talking about is forget the math, when it's something as artistic as that. But if you do need it to match up, what you want to do is get like one of these radial setups or one of these other companies that makes a set of DIs specifically designed to match guitar impedances, amp impedances to line impedances, so that when you feed your guitar back into your amp, it sounds the same as it did the first time, and then you're starting from square one, the same square one, and you can make your adjustments. It makes life a whole lot easier. And the reason for that isn't, like I was saying, it isn't so much what's going on in the transformer, it's the impedance hitting the pickup, hitting the amp. Like the guitars, different guitars and different amps sound good largely because of the impedance differences. Like you plug your Les Paul into your Marshall, it sounds different than you plug it into your Fender, even if they're both a 112 combo or whatever. Like make the playing field as level as possible. The difference is how the impedance of the input on the amp loads the pickups on the guitar, and that's what you're trying to match up when you're doing reamping.
There are a few for guitars in particular, probably basses too, I'm sure. But certain pedal companies actually put buffers, impedance buffers, into the pedals. Boss does it, and that's actually the only reason that I had Boss pedals for a long time is because the impedance buffers were so good. I didn't use them. It was a $150 buffer that I threw in the chain that I never turned on. I ended up selling it. But once you're running through, I think Brandon Golwitzer kind of covered this when he talked about the difference between quad mic cables and just regular, there's a loss of frequency.
Is that Reggie Jackson?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a 76 series, dude.
That's the year I was born.
That was 12 years before I was born. But, there's one of the companies that I work with a lot, a couple of my friends are sponsored by. JHS actually they make this little black buffer pedal, and they'll make it with or without a toggle switch. So if you want a darker tone, you turn it off. Because I think, like most guitars, I think what they said on there is, if you go in hitting 500 ohms, and at the end of your pedal chain, if you got a long pedal run, you're down to like 100, maybe. You lose all that high end because you're going in and out of pedals, all these different exchanges within the pedals, plus all, at the end of a long pedal run, you're adding another 20 feet of cable if you use that many pedals.
Right.
You're losing tons of high. You're recompensating. You get a weird hissing noise and all that stuff. So,
and it's a long lesson. I won't go into the whole thing, but basically, what you're looking for ideal impedance matching is to go from. Oh shoot! I'm not even gonna remember which way it goes. I'll be safe and say you're looking for about a 10-to-1 ratio. I forget which one's higher. Was it line level inputs are 10K? So line level outputs are
100,
about 1K.
Oh, 1,000.
10 to 1.
Yeah.
And what that does is that allows for the best voltage transfer. Now, it doesn't allow for the best power transfer, but you're not interested in transferring power when you're talking about mic signal, line signal. You're interested in power transfer when you're talking amplifiers going out to speakers, but even that is a little bit different because speakers aren't a resonant load. The only instance I could think of where you really want an input, an output matched exactly into an input is like radio transmitters. Like if you have a 50 ohm output on a radio, you want to match it into 50 ohm feed line and if possible a 50 ohm antenna, but that never happens. Like you can buy 50 ohm feed line, but it always requires some sort of matching device, some kind of transformer.
Just not compensate for the length of cable that you're going to be running into it, because it'll lose at least a little bit.
But the reason it works with antennas is because they're resonant at the frequency.
Oh, okay.
So like if you cut an antenna to be resonant at the frequency you're transmitting at it, theoretically you don't need any matching. But like speakers are resonant at some frequencies, but not resonant at others, and you're throwing lots of frequencies at them. So it's better to match for better voltage transfer. You get a more linear signal than to match for power. But at that point, I'm in over my head. It's too late for me to. All right. I don't want to go too far down
that text.
Yeah, I'm going to get in trouble if I go too far down there. Because that is the great thing about the internet is as soon as you step out of line, buddy, they are on top of you. Huh. Well, that's about it. That was all we thought of in advance.
Really? We're talking more about what about the pros of rerouting a console or something like that? Because
Get on it. I'm going to eat one of these rum balls. I'm going to live dangerously.
John's going to pass out in about 5 seconds. One of the most discouraging things I think I've seen in a while is there's a studio that I'll work with downtown a little bit here and there. One of my friends is a production assistant engineer down there. He does a lot of writing, like cinematic type stuff, but he's not he's a great idea guy. He's great at composing stuff and getting a mood fit really well, but he knows it too. He's pretty bad at wiring stuff in, patching things, all that kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, I know how to patch it, but I don't know why I should patch certain things. He's like, you tell me to patch in a kick drum to a certain preamp, I don't know exactly why you want me to patch to that preamp instead of a different one. All that kind of stuff. Anyways, my big qualm with the studio is that they have a 40 channel. It's not the greatest desk in the world. It's an Otari Concept 1, which in all respects is still a pretty nice old school, they're decently big in the 80s and stuff, analog consoles. Usually B or C rooms in big studios, or an A room in like a smaller studio.
But Atari was really known more for their tape machines.
Oh yeah,
they're not big tape machines either.
Like 16 track, 24 track at tops, but they sounded good. I love Otari track drums. But they had this old, I think it was a 50 channel or 52 channel Otari desk they actually bought from the record plant in New York. And sold it because they didn't have anybody on staff to maintain it, which is a big thing with old analog desks. Anyways, sold it, got this Concept 1, which is nice. It's got more digital integration where you can save your presets and all that kind of stuff. My big problem with it is that they use it for playback. So it warms up the playback. So you got 40 channels of a desk they're not using for anything other than warming up 1 and 2. I almost just walked out of the studio with that LA 610 just because. It bothered me a lot. There's all kinds of plugins, great stuff, whatever. But there's something about mixing on an analog desk. Me and one of the guys from another studio around here were having this awesome, just hashing it out over the fact that we were really upset that the biggest studio in Buffalo got rid of their API desk for an SSL.
Meh.
I don't know. SSLs sound really good. They're super clean, but there's something just more rock and roll, I guess, about an API desk. Not
that I've got that much experience on desks. In fact, I have none.
But
I've never mixed on an API or an SSL, but I wouldn't kick an SSL out of bed for snoring.
Oh no,
unless there was an API waiting to jump in.
Right, exactly. Like you listen to certain stuff that's mixed on API. Like, some of my favorite drum sounds were from Tool's 10,000 Days album. Big, giant ass drums. Danny Carey plays a Sonar kit, but it's like a 7 or a 9 piece kit that he had made out of melted down cymbals. The whole drum kit's brass. It weighs like 700 pounds. Everything else they recorded on an SSL except for the drums. He said, nope, I want it to sound bigger. I want it to sound more like rock and roll drums. So Joe Barresi took him to somewhere in Los Angeles or Santa Monica to an API desk and recorded the drums there. Everything else they did on an SSL. But there's something about those drums. They're like the Soundgarden drums. Oh, yeah. Like, all that stuff, it's more gritty. It's not as clean sounding. It's not dirty.
It's like the difference between, it's actually exactly the difference between a Foo Fighters record and a Green Day record.
Yeah.
They're both amazing, but you can tell,
hear. Like Green Day stuff is all, Chris Lord Alge does it all on SSL stuff, and that's fine. Like, all your super big guys, your big mixing and mastering guys use SSLs. They're, even, Joe Barresi, who, he did the Soundgarden album that I did a playlist on, does all his mixing on an SSL because it's cleaner. But for some of the recording stuff, there's a grit that you just can't get, unless you're running a crap load of 500 series or you got a bunch of channel strips in a wall, all API stuff. with that Slate plugin that I've got, there's 5 different consoles that you can pick from. There's an SSL, an API, a Neve, a Trident, and an old RC tube desk, which is an old radio control, all tube, pre, all that stuff. And 9 times out of 10, it goes API every time. Like, there's not as much super low in the kick and bass, but it hits harder with an API than it does with a Neve. Or definitely with an SSL. Like, I like an SSL on vocals most of the time, unless I want them really warm. There's just, I don't know. I'd almost ditch the rest of the plugins and just get a whole SSL pack, or I'm sorry, an API pack if I could.
Well, stuff keeps coming on sale here. Waves had another big sale this week.
That's okay. I'm still super broke this week.
Yeah.
So.
I got all excited because like Thanksgiving and Christmas time, places were giving away plugins or having stuff go out extremely cheap, and I don't know, was it almost time for like the President's Day sales or something? There's like
Martin Luther King Day is Monday.
Oh, is that okay? That's why.
So there should probably be some pretty good bass and drum plugins coming up.
Well, all right. There's actually Waves had a couple nice packages coming up for significantly. I mean, a plug-in package is normally $1,200 going out the door for $300.
I might just have to.
That I still don't have, but
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna be a little bit strapped on cash for the next 9 months or so.
Yeah.
So.
Well, for the next.
Well, yeah, at least the immediate
years.
9 months or so. You figure that out, people listening to the podcast.
Oh, there was one other thing I was going to bring up. The Sound City. Sound City documentary is coming out here shortly. Is it playing anywhere near us, or do you have to live in a real city to get to actually see that on a big screen? How far is Toronto?
Well, I can't go. I don't have a passport.
Dang.
And I'm not wasting money on one of those. What are they? The expanded licenses or the what the heck do they call those?
Oh, enhanced license.
Enhanced license.
That's not. Next time your license is up, go ahead and get one.
Okay.
Might need to go
about
to Canada
9 years. Yeah.
Well, you know what we do when we get it. Nobody is at my place of business after 1 p.m. on a Sunday.
Do you want to watch it in simulcast and do it? Well, you got actually a bigger screen than I do.
That's what I'm saying. I got 22 and a half feet of HD up in front.
But mine's stereo.
We need to watch it at your place.
We could repatch all the delays and do it in 5.1. Just turn those suckers around.
Yeah. Either we can swindle Gordon into bringing his rig over to my place. We'll have the big screen and have it in panoramic loud vision. Gosh, it was one other thing. I thought of it and forgot it twice again because that's what I do. It was I'm gonna have to open up the blog and look it up. It was something from a post earlier this week. Well, one of the things about Sound City was somebody bought it and it's still in there. Like if you look in the previews for that movie, you know, they show him taking the console, that Neve apart and taking it out of there, and everybody's kind of mourning it. But somebody bought the place and is in there. Like Sound City still exists. It's sort of just for use by the owners, but it's
really?
Fairfax Recordings is in there. I forget the guy's name, but he was just on Pensato's place, the episode that not a couple of weeks ago from here, but I think it was episode 79, 78, somewhere in there. Kevin something or other. Well, anyway.
Brushert?
No. Yeah, right.
Kevin Brushert, you jerk. We need jobs.
But, no, somebody did take over Sound City, which is, I mean, it's just, if you don't know about it, look it up, go see the movie, buy it when it comes out. It's one of the most iconic recording studios around. Tom Petty, I think Fleetwood Mac.
Nirvana.
Yeah, Nirvana, Rage Against the
Nevermind.
Machine, Foo Fighters, Metallica, like just crazy huge album after crazy huge album.
Rock and roll happened there.
Yeah,
is what happened.
And there's still the same like brown shag carpet on the walls, and the linoleum has never been replaced because everybody's so terrified that if you change one thing,
like the McClure
it'll
van,
wreck it. Yeah.
I wonder if that's why they did that.
I took the fuzzy dice off the mirror, and the brakes failed, and the exhaust fell off.
Were you in the van when we drove from Niagara Falls to Pennsylvania with the e-brake on?
Oh, I think I was behind you with my truck and trailer.
Yeah.
Incredible. What did I post about this week? Stalling for time. I want to pull it up. It was something worth mentioning, I'm sure. No, really talk.
There's more movie stuff I think he posted about.
The movie post went over pretty good. That was which did I post?
There was the teaching sound post.
That got a good response. Yeah.
I was actually pretty surprised when I looked at the analytics for some of that stuff. Like, wow, people pay attention to us almost a little bit. Like, definitely.
Well, it was incredibly gratifying to get like 800 hits in a day.
That's ridiculous.
And then have 300 of those people click through and actually listen to the stuff we put out there.
Right. I don't even care that I didn't write it. That's impressive.
So, yeah, the mini podcast, that's definitely going to keep happening.
We'll have to, if there's anything that you guys are thinking, you want to hear some samples, because I'm a guinea pig and I'll do that kind of stuff when I'm not sleeping, which is most of the time. I actually had a lot of fun doing the mini podcast this week with the kick drum, messing around and just doing, little samples and stuff. Honestly, if you guys like any of the samples, let me know and we'll send you just raw AIF files, and you can use them for samples, because some of them sound pretty good. We'll do that for a fee, I guess. I don't know. We're broke, so whatever you guys want to do.
This is also therapy for us.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Some of this stuff is work, like coming up with coherent blog posts, but jawboning about audio. Like, I walk through Anthony's door, like, say hi to his wife, sit down, watch 2 seconds of whatever's on TV, and we're immediately...
This is literally what ends our week. Like, this is our wrap-up for...
We would be doing this anyway, so we press record and you get to listen to... Doggone it. Do you not have any 3G?
I have lots of... Well, I have Verizon, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You want to use my phone?
I guess.
Should we pause that for a second while you... I don't know. I've got nothing else to talk about. Simpsons is going to pop up. Hold on.
Pull up the blog. Oh, I remember what it is now. You can put your phone down. The post that I wrote about...
I'll keep looking at guitar slides. Okay.
All right. The post that I wrote about remoting your mic pre's.
Oh.
Guys are doing that in the studio, and they used to do it back in the days, like before Phantom Power, with tube mics. The power supply used to be out on the floor, and you'd
its
send
own little fridge.
Yep, and you'd send line level back to the console. That's starting to happen nowadays in the live world, where if you're mixing digital with a digital snake, your mic pre's live on stage. So probably about the longest run of analog cable is 100 feet of mic cable max, and probably less than that, I'm thinking, in a lot of cases. So then there's all of that line loss, not a terrible amount. Some of that loss of high end due to capacitance buildup. But
I mean, like the lightning storms that you have in the sanctuary at your church.
Yeah. But take that. It's not much per channel, but multiply it by 48 channels, 64 channels, however many channels you got, 92, 96.
And your returns and all
of that, yeah, and the return lines. So if all of that goes digital, you get a lot quieter system. And on systems nowadays, I mean, the live world and the studio world are really starting to converge. Like, sound systems are so good that you can get away with studio techniques on stage because you can hear the difference. Like, guys are bothering to time align the bass DI with the bass mic because even the punters can hear things tighten up when you do stuff like that.
I think what was, maybe we'll watch that after this, depending on how awake we are. The Nine Inch Nails DVD that I've got.
We can't watch that right before we go to bed. It's like watching Sherlock Holmes.
We're gonna dream so good.
I watch an hour of Sherlock Holmes here, and I can't sleep until 3 a.m. We're gonna watch that Jeff Beck thing and pass out.
But like stuff like they've got, what do they have? They've got the venues or whatever, the Avid stuff.
Yeah.
But they're actually running their stuff through whatever patches and studio effects they used, and there's no latency in it.
Very little. It's probably a couple milliseconds.
Right, but by the time it's all realigned by front of house, it's all
close enough.
Right, exactly. Like for that kind of live performance and stuff. But you're doing stuff where you're taking maybe a dry guitar line and splitting it, going into a digital rack and running all your effects there, and then feeding that to front of house and back to your monitors and all that stuff. Plus you're feeding that into your stack, whatever, on stage and everything. You get the studio sound live. Which is, like, one of my favorite guys that's been doing that forever is Tom Morello. But he's, his setup's super simple. Even though his sounds are pretty crazy, he does it with, like, 4 pedals.
Yeah.
Or 6 pedals.
Yeah, I think it's only over 6.
He's got a whammy, a tremolo, a delay, and a tuner. Yeah.
Yeah, the tuner is one of them.
Right, yeah.
A tuner and a Dunlop. 4 to go.
Yeah. But... Really? All all that kind of stuff. Like, it's getting closer where even with vocal effects, like, Trevor at your church uses a TC Helicon little vocal enhancer or whatever kind of stuff to get, that for lack of better terms, T-Pain type sound on certain stuff.
We're using that this week.
Yeah.
It was so funny watching Brian singing to it. We'd done a radio voice kind of thing.
Right.
Just for the first 2 lines of a song, just a pickup basically. And so we had this radio sound. It sounded pretty close to what they had done in the demo. And then he turned on the auto-tune. Didn't set the key. I watched my boss, who has some of the best vocal control of any individual I've ever known personally, totally
lose his...
he was watching himself go down the toilet. He was like, why can I not do this? The look on his face was, I felt so bad for him, but I didn't want to interrupt him to tell him, like, put that sucker in A. Like,
that sucks.
Need a ding alarm to prevent side shifting.
That's a rough thing. Like, there are a couple times that when I was back using Logic, you set just, okay, pitch correction. And then for some reason it would reset the next time you loaded the session and go back just to see your
chromatic.
Not so much. You're about a quarter of a step off here and there. And
you know what the amazing thing was, though, is even though he couldn't hit his pitches because it was in C and the song was in A, by the time, and this is 2 lines, by the time he was halfway through the second line, he had figured out how to make something that would at least work within the chord structure.
That's nice.
Dude's amazing. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. Thinking about the implementation of this, with digital consoles, it's easy. You have remote control over your preamps. They're not meant to be dialed in on stage. If you're going to do it in the studio, like, okay, you park the Avalon, you park the Focusrite, you park whatever out in the live room. Now your assistant's got to be out there to twiddle knobs and stuff for you.
Right.
But if you think about it in the, and not that this is that much noise, but I guess the point of it is that even though your mic signal is balanced, and in a studio or in a sound system, your line level signals, children, better be on balanced cables. If they're not, you're losing 6 dB and
respect.
Just leave the door open, let in noise, electromagnetism, the neighbor's dog, whatever. Like, you're dumb. Don't use guitar cables for studio signal. They're for guitars. And even that's one
of my favorite techniques is to take an Aviom and take a guitar cable and plug it into a CA9 and feed that right into a wedge.
I'm sitting close enough to smack you.
John's got a switchblade.
Oh.
I had to correct that, and they're like, "Wow, this sounds way better." Like, yeah, I'm feeding a balanced line out of your Aviom into a powered wedge, not
6 dB louder and no noise. But at any rate,
those jerks set it to mic level.
In a lot of cases, like if you were going to park your Avalon or whatever, or your Joe Meek, Joe's out in the car, by the way. He was.
Oh, I might actually. There might be some work for Joe. Somebody wants me to master some stuff, and I got crap. So
I don't know. I'll bring him in.
You get a per diem.
But if you're going to put a studio channel, one of these cat's ass mic pre's out on the studio floor and dial it in or whatever, a lot of them have line level outs on XLR connectors, so you can still use.
Yeah.
Your studio's built-in wiring, no change necessary. And the difference is mic level signal is, I forget, it's not generally very many microvolts, thousandths of a volt.
I don't know.
I was going to look that up before, but the internet doesn't work for me.
At the end of the day.
Line level signal is neighborhood of a volt RMS. So if there is a little electromagnetic interference, radio frequency interference, it's going to have a lot less effect on a 1 volt signal than it will on a signal that's,
40,
a 50th of a volt. So on a high channel count project, it could make some difference. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about it compared to like what they used to do with tape. Like Bruce Swedien was particularly anal about this. Like, they would record their masters and then he would immediately make safeties. And then he would make safeties of the safety. Like, they weren't even safeties. Like, these were the working copies. So
right.
He would progress and, like, work with the set. He'd, like, the masters, then the safeties, and then from the safeties make slaves and slaves of slaves and work on the 4th generation until the oxide started to wear out. And then throw those away and work on the 3rd generation until the oxide started to wear out. And so that by the time he had his mix perfected, that would be the only other time that the masters would ever get drug across the tape head. Ask yourself, does that matter? Is like on one of the Michael Jackson records, they spent $1 million on tape stock I mean, that was when they still made the stuff. Like, there were still factories churning the stuff
Yeah.
out. $1 million in 1980s dollars.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's
on tape.
A couple million now.
Does it matter? I don't know. Have you heard bad? Did it sell a couple copies?
Amanda made fun of me so bad. She's like, really? Your favorite Michael Jackson song is Man in the Mirror? Are you joking me? I was like, no. We're going to listen to it 3 times now.
So, these infinitesimal things are starting, even though everybody's listening on, iPod buds, these things build up and they matter. Like, the better digital gets, the better converters gets, the more things matter. The other thing, too, is if you just got a rack of 192s and you're in Pro Tools land, throw them out in the live room. Get a longer connecting cable to bring that stuff back into your computer. Once it's digital, it's basically immune to noise. I mean, as long as nobody shoots it or cuts it up.
You have power issues like I do.
Yeah.
Where one room is on 3 different legs and you have no idea where they split out to.
Your best friend's an electrician. I can come down there and sort the stuff out for you. But anyway, it's something to think about and do some experimenting with. So I'm gonna do some stuff like this at work. I might actually. Let me know when you're done with Joe, because I might put Joe on stage.
He's in your car.
Well, I mean, if you need him, I'll.
Well, actually, I'd probably sub out the work to you.
It's like a divorce settlement. We're like trying to sort out the kids. Like, okay,
we're still living in the same house.
You get Joe during the week, but he has to come with me on the weekends because I need him to use.
Can we get one of these?
Yeah, Anthony's got one of these mini fridges that looks like a Marshall stack.
Yes,
those are cute.
What's fairly not cute is this thing.
Oh, don't make me barf. Yeah, there's this meme that's going around. Here, you want to read it or
I'll go through it. So one of my friends at church with the bass player sent me this.
This is everywhere on the internet. It's even on Facebook by now.
It's on my Facebook, so find me and write awful things on my wall so I get fired from my job, guys. It's this little sketch that says modern recording, vintage German tube microphone, $12,000. British Class A mic pre $4,000, vintage tube compressor $35,000, digital converter $10,000, Pro Tools HD $20,000, vintage Neve console $450,000, into an MP3 that costs 95 or 99 cents and earbuds that cost $10.
If that.
Yeah, it's depressing.
The scale of things. Actually, something else that's funny that popped up. I don't want to name the guy or even where I saw this, but. This cat posts pictures of his room, and it's like a bad cell phone picture, like it's all green, and you can barely see stuff, and there's like his baseball cap collection hanging on the wall, and like one mic stand with some stuff leaning up against it, and like a really cheap electronic drum kit somewhere, and the requisite, like you don't have a whole, like the 3D diffuser foam, one chunk of it. So like one square foot of diffuser foam hung up, diamond style on the wall. Because in home studio land, if you don't have 1 square foot of diffuser foam on your wall, then you ain't
got nothing.
You ain't got nothing, buddy. You're just pretending. So it's one of these pictures, and guys post pictures like this all the time, and the old timers and the experts will be like, oh, okay, cool start. This isn't bad. You might want to consider buying this next. And that's usually what the guys are looking for. Like, here, this is my setup. What should I do? And, the first answer is, well, take the diffuser down because you're kidding yourself, and then pull your monitors away from the wall. Like, they're not meant to be touching drywall. But, so it looked like another one of these posts, but like shortly the guy gets all bent out of shape because he's like, well, this is $20,000 worth of stuff and bark.
That doesn't include the house cost, you jerk.
And guys were trying to calm him down because it's actually a pretty nice forum we're in. And they're like, dude, chill. And he's like, he just wasn't hearing it. He was like, out came the penis size references and all this other stuff. I think the post got deleted. Like, I tried to put in my 2 cents. I was like, listen, dude, there are guys in here with single pieces of gear worth 2.5 times what your whole rig is worth.
Yeah.
No, if you want to have a contest, just like, all right, take it out. Like, take it out and measure. And the other guys in the forum will just take out enough to win.
So, just enough to win, not even like breaking a sweat getting the key to their other lockers and stuff, like just, here, open the door.
What's like, that? Oh yeah, my console's worth 2.5 times what your whole rig is worth.
Can you breathe that air? No, you can't because you're not good enough.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a case of, and I've seen it happen. I was guilty of it too. Like when you're a noob and you're starting to think like what's going on. Because you're maybe the toughest kid on the block, and then, somebody that actually knows what they're talking about comes around and you realize what a fool you are, and you get all defensive about it instead of being cool and trying to learn.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think we pulled that off without mentioning any names. I didn't say that it was Home Studio Guy 2345 on the It totally wasn't, and he apologized. Any references to screen names, real or fictitious, is purely coincidental. All right. Well, hey, we're closing in on the 1 hour mark. We got any wrap up stuff we need to?
I don't think so. I'm losing my DW kit this week.
Oh.
I finally got it to where I like it too.
Dang.
I'm trying to think what else we got. That we haven't covered already. I think I've whined enough about time budgeting and people not giving you stuff on time.
It's when good stuff happens, though, under pressure.
To a point. Depends on. I might be building a studio above my garage. Maybe
that could be fun. There'd be a lot of good lessons in there. Not that I'm an acoustician or an acoustics expert or room treatment expert, but I know a few things. I actually hit a guy. There is a guy at a forum that I post on. I tried reaching out to him, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet. But every time a thread starts about room treatment, dude pops up and drops science, like blinds you with science.
Equations you didn't learn in Calculus 3.
Exactly. And so I'm trying to make friends with a guy because I want to know.
Symbol? Like, that's not any kind of alphabet I've ever seen.
It's awesome though, because it's you know how it is when you kind of get so you're the smartest person that you know. And then, it's really comforting and encouraging to be around people that suddenly know a lot more than you. Like, oh, good, there's more to learn.
Let me drop some knowledge on you.
Yeah. So I've been trying to reach out to, I won't mention screen names either, but there is a cat out there who appears to really have his stuff together. I'm going to try and get him to do a couple of guest posts for us in layman's terms so that your humble host can understand. But that's the kind of thing, like...
if you can knock that down to the normal alphabet for us so we can figure it out.
I mean, it's the same in studios as it is live. Like, EQ isn't the first thing you should do. It's the last thing you should do. Like, if you're having problems with your room, move your speakers, treat the walls. That's 95% of the battle. EQ is the last finishing touch. So that's some stuff we'll be covering here in the future.
I had a nice conversation with the guy that's doing my string arrangements for me about how gear is kind of similar. Like, if you put any kind of compressor in front of either one of us, we know how it works. It's not a big deal. But he had the same kind of experience where he went into a studio and had never worked with any of the stuff before, but had a Triton rack, a motif rack, a bunch of different key sample racks and stuff, and just started screwing around with everything and figured it out. It's kind of nice to at least build your chops on a basic piece of equipment and really learn it inside and out, and then you kind of got some nice smoke rings. To build your chops up to a certain point where you can blow smoke rings like that while we're recording.
Forgot what I was doing there for a couple of seconds.
No, but yeah, it's nice working with him, with someone that's got a different skill set than I do. You know, like you with you're working with your boss, like your boss knows arranging and
boy does he,
like all that kind of stuff inside and out, but you put him in front of the console and say, hey, could you knock this off of here and sort out these things and pan these a certain way? And he'd be like, why don't you do that? Because I pay you to.
Right. It's funny when we work together. I really can't wait to, like, I've mixed 2 records worth of stuff without him in the room, and he kind of comes in and checks once in a while. Like, he just has such deep knowledge of that stuff, and I so respect that, and totally don't have... I understand it just enough to know that he's amazing.
Right.
And I think, like, we sort of have a mutual admiration society, and I really can't wait to get so that we work really well together, because it's going to be like... the thing I compare it to is, like, I grew up working for the family construction business. I worked with my dad. He came over one Sunday to change out a couple windows, throw in some replacement windows. And my wife figured, we'd have the kitchen torn apart all day. I think it took 32 minutes or something like that.
Like, a drop new.
And she just stood there with her mouth open, like, it's like watching one guy with 4 arms. Like, that's the kind of working relationship I want to get.
That's a nice
with
thing
a producer.
Especially producer, arranger, composer, all that kind of stuff. Like, if you're starting out, like I consider myself still starting out because I don't actually have my own place to record and mix and engineer and all that stuff. I'm working out of my employer's place. Don't take advantage or don't write off somebody that might be just getting started, because there's a good chance that they might know something way more intense about certain things than you do. There's, I can explain to this guy over and over how compression ratios work and your threshold and your release time and all that stuff works. But as soon as it gets into arranging, like I top out at like second or third year college theory knowledge.
I'm not even that far.
Yeah, and he doesn't know exactly how it works, but he knows in his brain what sounds better than what I can come up with off the top of my head, like just counter melodies that in an Elvis song they wouldn't have thought of, I didn't think of, all this kind of stuff that he's just like coming up off the top of his head while he's sipping on a glass of whiskey, just at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Like we had a good old time with it, but don't take advantage of it. If you got a friend or even somebody that you don't really like that much, just
it's actually more of a challenge. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Like
work with somebody you hate on something and see if you can get it to turn out all right.
Exactly. Like I've done that for a while, and after you get past yourself and try and figure out where they're coming from and try and figure out how their brain works, you get a lot of really neat knowledge, and just soak all that stuff in, just so you've got it in the future and you can work better with them, because that'll bring you more business live or studio wise.
Yep. Or at least having a partner to go off of. Like you can say like, all right, this doesn't feel right, and it's not anything that I have control over. Like, why isn't this working? And then somebody with the music chops steps in.
Me and John do that probably on like a bi or tri-weekly basis.
Well, but we're both talking about audio. Like,
right.
I'm really interested to work with somebody closely who knows the music, and I think I know how we're going to go about it too, because I'm finally starting to understand some stuff that one of my professors would talk about. I mean, he was sort of a professor. I mean, he was really a record producer and a guitar and bass player. But this cat, Joe Ferry, I don't even know what the name of the class was that he taught, just that I had to take 2 semesters of it, and I wound up taking 4. He would just come in and tell you stories for an hour and a half or 3, however long the class was. He would just tell you stories, but they would all be sort of on a theme. And at the end of a night, you would know how to deal with like coked up, high strung musicians, or a band when they're all fighting. But one of the subjects that he kept coming back to was how he and his engineer worked together, because he knew nothing technical, had been in the industry. Like he invented like the air quotes, like the porno
funky
guitar, the disco scratch guitar.
Yeah,
he invented that. But anyway, he would talk about working with his engineer, and they just had this whole language built up between him. Like he didn't know, and I don't know exactly. I'm going to get the correlations wrong, but he wouldn't say like, yeah, the snare drum boost 2.5K a little bit. He would say, no,
I need a snap, crackle, and pop in that sucker.
Well, he would say stuff. He had really cool terms. Like I need to call him up and find out what his terms were, because they tell you, if you're an engineer, they tell you where it needs to go. It's like, take that snare, make it a little bit dusty. They're like, no, I didn't mean dusty. I meant put some points on it. And
that's so cool when you can do that. It's more cool when there are other people in the room that don't know what's going on. They're like, what's going on? It sounds so much better now.
Yeah.
Like,
or when you have like words that are real similar that mean really different things. Like, it sounds cheesy. Or like, but no, put some cheese on it.
So much queso.
Like, no, I didn't mean make it cheesy. I meant put some cheese on it. Oh, okay. Not cheese, queso. Yeah, we're going to need to work out our language for that. And I'm sure it was just trial and error with them. So, like, when Brian sits down, like, it's frustrating for us because I don't know what he wants and he doesn't know how to tell me what he wants. Mm-hmm. But the more we work together, the quicker we get to that spot.
I was in recording vocals with my boss and one of my other pseudo bosses. And I started explaining, they're like, the vocal sounds just a little bit week in this track. I was like, oh, here, check this out. Let me do this real quick. And I built a Smash channel up and all that kind of stuff. And I explained how the Smash channel worked. And she just looked at me like I was a genius. I wonder if there's going to be a raise from that. Like,
it'd be nice.
Just like certain stuff. You're just like,
I'm Batman.
I didn't, right. Yeah. Like, I didn't try to make myself sound smarter than I was or anything. Like, I explained it how it makes sense to me. But to someone else, like, if you can not dumb it down, but make it more relatable to them, that helps a lot. Almost leveling the playing field a little bit, I guess. Not intentionally to make it, like you're feeling more dumb or they're not as intelligent as you or anything like that. But there's certain stuff that just kind of helps out the whole process.
Builds confidence in you. Yeah, when we just twiddle the knobs a little bit, and suddenly it's coming together in a way that they can understand. And that's actually a lot of part of the psychology and the politics of it is reading your client or your partner or the producer and figuring out where it is that they want to go. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't have the language to talk engineer to a guy sitting at a console. They talk artist or musician or arranger or producer, and you have to, in addition to being engineer smart, know enough about their side of the business to catch what they're slinging.
And almost building up their confidence a bit, like my drummer, who he actually used to work out at Hangar in California, Hangar Studios. I worked at a studio in Manhattan too, and when they were redoing the studio in Manhattan, the one of the owners said, they're like, you know what? Let's put some stadium seating in the control room, because the artists like to feel like they're better than you. So put them up a step and then another step. All that kind of stuff.
That's where that came from. Everybody does that now.
I know. I don't know if that was the first place or, like, I'm sure it wasn't the first place, but, you know, he did it there, and they loved it.
I bet.
Absolutely loved it, because they didn't, you know, it's not like they weren't allowed to talk, but at the same time, they felt like they were looking over his shoulder and, like, had to approve of, you know, what you're doing, your automation and your track building, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, really what it was keeping them more out of your way. Like, they had to walk around a row of seats to get to you and start bugging you about, you know, hey, why don't you do this and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it's psychological for sure.
I was gonna. Nah, I won't put it out there. We're running long already. We started wrapping up 5 minutes early, and now we're 6 minutes long. But had a couple. I'm going to start a Karen Feeding of Sound Guys column that's going to turn up periodically on the blog. I was approached a couple of times recently while I was mixing. Like during a song, people would come up and say stuff to me, and did it in a fairly respectful manner. So I was going to outline that a little bit so you can daydream about having people nice enough to approach you at the mix. I'm pretty lucky where I work that everybody's pretty nice and pretty respectful, even when they have a complaint for you. All right, well, it's about time to wrap this bad boy up. We've been wrapping it up for 15 minutes pretty near.
That's about right.
But anyway, thank you to all our listeners. Thanks for turning in. I took a look at the worldwide stats. We're doing pretty good in the States. We got every state except Wyoming and North Dakota. So if you have a buddy, can we just get one hit in each of those states? We'll have all 50. Boom, done.
Yeah.
And
not porn bots.
Cheers to all our listeners in Canada. I still don't believe that we have an actual listener in Russia. First person to write to me from a Russian domain. We'll have some kind of prize for you. Maybe we'll Skype you in. But yeah, all the botnets out in Russia.
You can mix my record. How about that?
Thanks for tuning in. And the Germans they're catching right up. They have taken the lead away from the English, from the Brits. Yep.
Have we heard anything back from Micah and Mike?
Not recently. I know Micah was getting real busy and had also been doing some writing on his own. But yeah, I got to reach out to those guys and make contact again. Actually, some old friends. Fred Brown's been commenting on the blog. Alfred, still need to get him on for a podcast one of these times.
Yeah.
Couple other friends of mine, guys that actually got their start in my little garage recording studio, who are out there doing stuff in the wide world. Going to get those guys on soon. But anyway, cheers to everybody else out there.
Can we get Josh on?
Mullen?
We'll track him.
He's sober enough to stagger over here.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll troll around Elmwood and Allen for a while and find him.
Mullen, come here. Shout into my laptop for a minute. See, the thing about playing bass is you have to get your foot up on the wedge like this so that you don't fall off and you don't play too many wrong notes.
He's going to show up later and throw beer bottles at my house.
I'll be gone by the time this goes to air. And, who else? All you Icelandic people, the Norwegians, pardon me, it's late and I've had too many rum balls.
Norwegians?
The Swedes, we got pretty good listenership all throughout Europe. Few people in Japan, few Aussies, few Kiwis. Saw we got a few hits down there in New Zealand. That was nice. Couple of hits, in South America. Some folks listening in down there.
Those are all those Kindo references that I'm making that somehow get tagged in there.
But average time on site seems to indicate that people are actually showing up and reading stuff, and I think it kind of averages out. Like I think if you show up every day and read, or if you show up once a week and read 4 or 5 posts at once, it seems like people are actually tuning in enough to digest stuff and move on. So cool. If you are a listener only and not yet a reader, check us out at smart2noise.blogspot.com. We're on there. Look us up on Facebook. We're starting to get a little community built up in there where you can ask your questions, get relatively quick answers to them. Beg your pardon. And what else? Anthony's on Twitter a bunch. I'm on Twitter never. When I update the Facebook page, it goes out to Twitter.
Yeah, don't do the hashtag thing. That's pretty bad for me.
Yeah, don't bother with that. But yeah, definitely reach out. We're trying to get a little community going here where folks answer questions, share knowledge, that sort of thing. And if you have requests for posts, by all means do that. If you have posts, if you like to post, I'm starting to run into a couple other bloggers who are kind of moving along in the same vein, so we might be doing some guest posting around the way. And all right, I think that's enough. We're going to wrap it up here. Thanks again, really. We would be doing this anyway. It's gratifying to know that it's interesting to other people and that you keep coming back for more. So, all right, that is the end of podcast number 32. 32.
Oh.
I have not been able. I'm sorry. I've been hacking and coughing the entire time. Sorry about that. I'm your humble